Hello everyone, thank you for watching our presentation on the African cluster. We are Team 4 and I am Megan Maltman.
I'm Victoria.
I'm Summer.
Talia Robinson.
Deontay Doctor.
I'm Brandon McKish.
So welcome. I hope that you find our presentation informative. We are going to share our presentation with you now. Very good. So as I mentioned earlier, we are presenting on the African cluster and we have chosen the country South Africa. Just going to make this smaller. Okay, great. So we are introducing a really exciting product, or we are proposing to introduce a product called the Diva Cup. This product was created in Canada, and we want to introduce it to South Africa for a variety of reasons. In this presentation, we're going to cover why we think this product will be beneficial to the South African people and what challenges we expect when it comes to product messaging and communication in order to make this rollout really successful. So now I will pass it off to Victoria to introduce our country to you.
So a brief introduction on South Africa. The country is located at the southmost point of the continent, as you can see in the photo there, and it spans 1.22 million square kilometers, so it's pretty big. There's over 54 million people that live there, and their median age is rather young. It's around 26.8 years. The country is almost equally split in terms of gender, and each woman on average has a fertility rate of 2.3 children. A large majority of the population lives in urban areas, so that would be large cities such as Cape Town or Johannesburg, and most of them do have clean water. With that being said, though, 1/3 has no access to sanitation facilities, and in terms of healthcare, there's less than one physician per 1,000 people.
So Victoria, what I'm seeing is that, you know, Diva Cup is a menstrual cup product for women. And what I'm seeing is that, you know, their median age is really young, which means a lot of women are menstruating and nearly half the population is women. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah. So yeah, and with their healthcare, they have about 1/3 the amount of physicians that Canada has. Canada has 2.2 physicians per 1,000 people, whereas South Africa, like I said, has less than one. And also for millions of girls in South Africa, they will end up leaving school just after the age of 12, because the average school life expectancy there is only 13 years. So before 13 years old, lots of children will be dropping out of school, which is pretty unfortunate.
And again, thinking of children who are 12 to 13 years old, for young women, that is right about the age they start menstruating, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you from an organizational structure perspective. You know, it's really important to observe some of the different cultural orientations according to Hofstede so that we can determine how best to structure our company in order to have successful operations in South Africa. So one of the cultural orientations that we looked at was power distance. And South Africa follows a very hierarchical when it comes to power distance, which means that they recognize that there is a hierarchy and an order, and subordinates expect to be told what to do. So this would mean that we would have to have a fairly rigorous management structure in place that has different levels so that people have, you know, direct supervisors who are passing along decision making and guidance to the employees of our company. When it comes to individualism versus collectivism, South Africa, and when I say South Africa, we are talking about the white South Africa. Culturally speaking, South Africa does break down into two different regions. So our data is based on white South Africa. When it comes to individualism versus collectivism, South Africa is considered to be an individualistic nation. And what this means is that the people tend to focus on taking care of themselves and their immediate family, and they don't necessarily work together for the common good of everybody. So this will affect people's motivation when it comes to their attitude towards work and towards helping each other. You know, we'd probably be best served to have a structure where employees, you know, have individual goals versus team goals. In terms of masculinity versus femininity, South Africa is considered to be a masculine culture. And what we mean by this is that, there's really this desire where people live to work, and managers are really expected to be decisive and assertive. So typically when there are disagreements, they are fought out. And this is just something to be aware of. We want to make sure that our managers and our supervisors on the front line who are directly supervising people are comfortable making decisions with that level of assertiveness. So we need to empower them to do so. When it comes to uncertainty avoidance, South Africa tends to avoid ambiguity. So what this means is that they have a low preference for avoiding uncertainty. They like to have clearly laid out, defined goals, defined roles. So in terms of our organization, that will be really important to,
Don't come over here.
to clearly lay that out. Okay? Now, when we're talking about long-term orientation versus short-term orientation, South Africa tends to have a more normative approach versus pragmatic. So this means there's great respect for honoring traditions. I would expect that the employees, follow, promotions would be awarded according to merit versus according to seniority. So we would look at that. And then lastly, when it comes to indulgence, the people there really just love to enjoy life. So, there's really a work hard, play hard mentality. So people love to indulge in their desires and have fun and enjoy life. And they'll spend their money as they wish and enjoy their leisure time. Okay. So in a business context, we just want to observe these cultural dimensions and apply them to how we both communicate and negotiate with our different stakeholders. I've given you some different examples with each different cultural dimension on how we could achieve better structure as an organization as we move into South Africa. So now to talk about intercultural and communication issues, I'm going to hand it over to Summer. Sorry, trade relations, Victoria.
Hi. So trade relations between Canada and South Africa are in place, and the South African market is booming. So it acts as a gateway to the entire African market. So actually, as of 2011, South Africa was added to the acronym that we all know as BRIC or BRICS. So it was formerly known as BRIC. So they're part of the 5 most rapidly growing economies worldwide. Actually, in 2014, over $1.5 billion worth of goods was exchanged between countries, being Canada and Africa. Over 440 million was exported from Canada to South Africa. So that's things like power and electrical machinery, sulfur, pharmaceuticals, pork, wheat, and lentils, and that's what we would give to them. And then in return, imported from South Africa here to Canada was over $1.1 billion worth of resources, such as citrus fruits, wine, nuclear machinery, and minerals such as iron, copper, titanium, and chromium. So we already have really strong existing trade relations between Canada and South Africa. So when we attempt to penetrate the market there with our new product, it's good to know that we already are in good standing with the country.
Good, thank you, Victoria.
Okay, so intercultural communication issues between these 2 countries can be better understood with Hofstede's cultural dimension series shown on the chart. Canada and South Africa vary in nearly all of the shown dimensions. As you can see, the most significant differences lie in the first 3 dimensions: the power distance index, the individualism index, and the masculinity index. With these significant differences in these dimensions, intercultural communication issues can occur. These differences will be further explained in the next slide. So according to the theory, the differences in the power distance index, with Canada being a low power distance and South Africa being a high power distance, these countries will likely experience power games when trading. This means that they will compete for power, especially if one country disapproves of the methods of the other in order to try to win over the power. This intercultural communication issue can create complications when trading, as it would be difficult to come to an end agreement. With the individualism index, an individualistic country like Canada will be upset with the lack of explicit communication done by a collective country like South Africa. This can prevent successful communication between these countries, as there would be many assumptions and less obvious verbal and nonverbal communication characteristics. Another issue involves the dimension of the masculinity index. With South Africa being ranked higher at this dimension, they prefer to have trade and resource relations diverse. It would be beneficial for Canada to maintain diversity within the trade and resource relations. Without this communication and general understanding of personal characteristics will not be effective. By nature of these indexes, Canada and South Africa will experience an unknown possibility of intercultural communication differences when negotiating and trading. However, now having the additional knowledge of these potential issues, it can be helpful in adjusting Canada's trade and negotiation methods so that when trading with South Africa, the trade will have a higher chance of being successful.
So Diva Cup, what is it? A Diva Cup is a bell-shaped menstrual tool internally worn and placed in the low vaginal canal to collect menstrual flow to prevent leakage onto clothes. It is needed in South Africa to solve the current shortage of sanitary pads, alter the menstrual care routine, and improve feminine hygiene and providing leak-free protection for up to 12 hours. It was actually reported in 2014 that 9 million girls between the ages of 13 and 19 dropped out of school due to a lack of private facilities to maintain a healthy menstrual hygiene. While water resources are fairly abundant, women in South Africa have a lack to access sanitary facilities, which make them unable to change their pads or tampons, directly affecting hygiene as well as their education. By owning a Diva Cup, this will give the ability for young females to comfortably attend school and pursue their education without worrying about personal hygiene. The market can be penetrated through awareness campaigns and programs to synthesize all women, targeting more specifically towards younger generations on how to use the Diva Cup and its benefits. However, menstruation in South Africa is seen as taboo, and this would provide a challenge to penetrate the market due to this cultural stigma. Furthermore, the Diva Cup would also provide a positive impact on the environment, as the product is free of dyes, plastics, latex, and polyethylene, making it environmentally friendly. They are designed to use for extended period, and the ability to reuse them provides a saving mechanism as compared to a one-time use from pads and tampons, which can help eliminate costs for those with low income. The waste produced from tampons and pads occasionally block septic pipes and end up costing organizations time and money to resolve and mitigate hazardous materials, which can potentially contaminate water resources.
So Deontay, what I'm hearing here is that, they really have an issue with girls missing school. 9 million girls missing school due to lack of private facilities is a big issue that we can help overcome. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow. And if women can, or young women can insert the Diva Cup and wear it for 10 to 12 hours, that means that they wouldn't even need access to sanitation while they're at school in order to change it, right?
Yes, this would help mitigate many of those problems and actually allow them to go to school comfortably and pursue their education.
Wow, okay.
Just some of the communication and messaging challenges that come with going into South Africa. There's a conservative out attitude in South Africa, making marketing challenges and all discussion about menstruation products quite difficult, such as that of the reusable Diva Cup. To bring that over there, it would appear controversial and impolite to talk about that in public, as determined by a favor for the individualistic society as per Hofstede's insights. Health communication, which comments on the depression of South African people, would not occur because they would rather focus on the well-being of the individual as opposed to the group. The lack of communication oriented towards educating women about the effects of poor menstrual hygiene on the contraction of bacteria, complications such as thrush, yeast infection, and other vaginal infections are bound to occur. These complications are prone to an increased risk in South Africa, where there is a prevalence of autoimmune disease and human immunodeficiency virus, so HIV and AD. Reproductive tract infections are a direct result due to the lowered immune systems, and a lack of menstruation education and communication available to South African goes further into oppressing the women that are there. This goes without a direct increase in any government or social support of how to mitigate and prevent these infections. In regards to some of the marketing challenges of the actual product, the Diva Cup will have to consider South African cultural elements and communication challenges to truly analyze market potential. The word diva does not have a direct translation that differs anything that of English translation, and the word cup was universally translated in over 7 of the South African languages, and there was no differences that were observed. It was still gone about as cup. However, there is a wine region in South Africa that is called Diva, so that might cause some confusion there. Although there are no apparent interpretations for how South Africans would respond to the pink and blue coloring on the package for Diva Cup, as shown below, there is an important relevance about the color red, and is something Diva Cup would have to consider if they would hope to alter their package at all going into the foreign countries. There is research to support a strong association with South Africans, and the color red is something to mourn. This color is only used as a symbolic purpose and reflects the struggle for independence in South Africa. Red strongly resembles bloodshed through violence and is respected as a color of sacrifice for their people. The symbol of South African national flower is that of the King Protea. It's the largest of the Protea flower family and is recognized across the country. This plant is often given as a gift between their people, and there are different color influences that are dependent on the relationship between the individuals. The common flower meaning for the King Protea flower is that of diversity, daring, transformation, and courage. And the traditional white message of the white flower is similar to that used on the Diva Cup packaging, resembles purity, honesty, and integrity, all of which are current limitations for the advocacy of menstrual products in South Africa.
Sounds like a good fit.
Diva Cup should utilize the integration of freedom for menstruation marketing strategy, which focuses on the reperception of menstruation in South Africa, away from images of shame and pollution, and more towards purity in conception and the integrity of the life-enhancing system that is menstruation. The traditional messages of the white Protea flower align with that of the Diva Cup's physical benefits, and the strong South African women who are demanding that their voices get dignified in these sort of aspects for hygiene. The South African social benefit of these values would ensure that women are included in the decision-making process that affects communities, and planning towards safe access and clean sanitary bins.
So the culture of South Africa is widely diverse, and with that comes its share of cultural and communicational issues that we are faced with when entering the market. The large number of South African population living in poverty and lacking the proper hygiene items, it presents a great opportunity for not only our product to be successful, but to help educate the population about the importance of female menstruation hygiene. Main cultural issue we face is that South Africa is a primary male-dominant society, and that they have many traditional views and a long-standing belief regarding gender roles. There's a negative stigma placed on the topic of female menstruation, and instead of addressing the issues, many females feel comfortable to discuss and often avoid the conversation altogether. The topic can be humiliating or embarrassing to address, and often many South African females avoid participating in activities, which results in them not receiving the full educational experience. By avoiding and not addressing the subject, this can result in further medical issues and increasing health risk. Additionally, there's a lack of awareness, and this is seen as a private issue in this culture, and the social damages of this problem are often hidden and rarely make the headlines. Lastly, religious belief may hinder the ability for females to receive proper treatment and further create social barriers of menstruation. The greatest technique to overcome the cultural differences with the Diva Cup is by educating the public and getting the population comfortable talking about the issue. We can offer free trials and work with the South African government to come up with a program that educates and promotes the effectiveness of our product. By increasing our public image and making the population understand the importance of our product, we will not only promote our business, but educate the public in the process.
Very good. So now from a corporate social responsibility perspective, earlier we discussed some of the health challenges that are currently facing South Africa. And really, it can be considered as a medical crisis. There is a very widespread issue of AIDS and HIV infections, which then result in autoimmune diseases, making people more susceptible to infections. Additionally, Victoria told us earlier that there's not enough physicians to support the populations in South Africa. There's only about 1 doctor to every 1,000 South African residents. Additionally, there's women living in poverty and young women dropping out of school. The whole population faces difficulty with access to sanitation. So with that, corporate social responsibility in South Africa is really directed toward medical aid and education of people regarding, you know, safe practices so you don't spread AIDS and HIV, and you know, certainly a menstrual product that is preventing, you know, someone's blood from entering you know, disposal facilities and sewers. Certainly a product like Diva Cup would help with that as well. In order to address from our own corporate social perspective as a company, we would really want to initiate things that will benefit the community and also educate the community, just spiraling on what Brendan talked about just now. In fact, today, on November 23rd, 2017, there was an event in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, put on by Diva Cup, where they were raising money and doing Facebook Live campaigns in order to raise money to buy Diva Cups for women in poverty in Halifax. So we would be looking to mirror some of those initiatives in South Africa, where we could give people access to the Diva Cup if they can't afford it. Of course, we know there are cost-saving benefits to using the Diva Cup, but if they can't afford it, we want to connect them with those resources. And of course, you know, it's a really good way to build lifelong customers as well, because these women will see how much money they're saving and how it is positively impacting their life. And there's just going to be a lot of benefits for both sides as well.
Just in conclusion, obviously we've gone through and we focus on some of the communication and messaging challenges, but also some of the benefits of working with Canada and South Africa. And there's an opportunity for Diva Cup to be more involved in the socially responsible community by promoting healthy living in communities who have inconsistent access to these facilities, educating the women, following their cultural values and their customs and symbols and everything. South Africa is a country with strong potential to be a partner with Canadian business and will succeed and continue to be competitive with the proper emphasis on South African needs and communication codes of their people.
Very good. So to our classmates who are watching this, thank you for taking the time. I do just want to make one correction. Earlier in the presentation, I stated that we were analyzing white South Africa, and I just said that in error. Just to clarify, we were talking about Black South Africa. So I hope that did not cause too much confusion. It's actually well in line, because the majority of the population in South Africa does belong to Black South Africa. So that was just the more relevant information. So now we welcome you. Should you have any questions about the African cluster, we'd be happy to talk more about these different cultural dimensions and the challenges that we've identified. You can contact us via the Group 4 discussion board, or I've just placed my personal email address on here as well, should you have any questions, and I will coordinate with our group. So thank you, everyone. Good luck with the end of your semester, and Patty, thank you for giving us this opportunity to present to you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye. I'm just going to stop the recording now.